podcast. In this podcast, we're talking to Shannon Keegan. Shannon is a swimmer and a podcaster. Some of you may have listened to her podcast, which is called Stories from the Water. It used to be called Marathon Swim Stories. Shannon's done some amazing swims in her own right, a number of them over 24 hours, and she was the first person to do a 58-kilometer swim in Dominica. Currently, she's working on a 50-mile swim, merely because she's 50 years old. Shannon is not just a swimmer and a podcaster, she's also a coach and a water relationship coach, driven partly by her need to understand her relationship to the water. This was a really good chat. I'm sure you're going to love it. Welcome to another Cleverdix podcast. In this podcast, we're talking to Shannon. Welcome, Shannon.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're very excited to have you because not only are you an amazing swimmer, but you're an amazing podcaster. So, there's a chance that we're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff and hear some great stories. So, yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I love a good story.
Yeah. Well, I've learned quite a lot from listening to your podcast, and the way that we always start ours as well is just giving you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about your swim story, how you got going, what keeps you going, and some of your motivations, and then maybe we can dive down into some of the amazing stuff that you've done.
That sounds familiar. That's my favorite thing to talk to people about too. I love getting the stories out there. As swimmers, our heads are underwater most of the time. And so, so we got to get those stories out because some of us are quiet people too, right? So you kind of need someone to pull
Absolutely.
It out of them.
Yeah.
So my story, I was a lifelong pool swimmer, started I remember earning my patch to swim across the deep end. That's kind of how it was in America. So at least where I was growing up in Virginia, I remember if you swam across the pool, you got a patch, and that meant you could go to the deep end and go off the diving board. So I remember that being a big moment in my life. And then we moved away from that pool. But anyway, I ended up finding a summer club, and all I had to do to get on the summer club was swim across the pool. So all of a sudden I became a summer club swimmer. So we were swimming in the summers when I was about 7. When I started, and I think by 9, I started swimming all year round, at a year-round club kind of thing. I think you guys call them squads. I don't know what, but I was just going to meets and earning ribbons and certificates and learning about this whole world of pool swimming. Mm-hmm. And that was all good and well until high school when I started having kind of I think in retrospect, it'd be performance anxiety is probably what was happening, but I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew that anytime it was a swim meet and there was some pressure on me, I'd dive in the water and I couldn't exhale, to save my life. So of course I couldn't really inhale. I was hyperventilating. And I remember my event was the 200 IM, and getting through the 50 butterfly was the hardest thing. And then once I did the 50 back and I could breathe the whole time, then I was kind of fine by breaststroke anyway, but it definitely quit swimming after high school for a really long time. And then I kind of dabbled in triathlon for a little bit in my 20s and kind of faced the same thing again. But all of a sudden I was going to open water venues and not really, just kind of being oh yeah, I know how to swim. And I remember one very specific one in the Pacific Ocean and just being petrified basically of what was under the, I got past the break, which I didn't even know what to do. I wasn't prepared at all. I just dive. I kind of one of those people that oh yeah, what are we doing? Okay, let's go. And then wait, what did I just sign up for? Recurring theme in my life. But I remembered just trying to get through this probably 800-meter swim or something as part of this just little short triathlon, and just being so petrified of putting my face in and not being able to exhale. But I knew I could swim, but I couldn't make myself swim. So warring with myself the whole time. And I kind of swore I never wanted that to happen again when I finally got through it all and got to the biking and the running. And I didn't really enjoy biking and running that much. I did do a few more triathlons. I would try to work on this whole thing about my fears of open water, but I didn't have a big group of people. And so anytime I was in open water, I was just wanted to get out. I just wanted what are we doing? Okay, get out, get in, get out. And it took a very long time. And somewhere in my 30s when I kind of figured out I just like, we moved to an area that had lakes everywhere and they were beautiful. And I could feel the water kind of pulling me back, like, like you could do this. And like, cause I mean, I'd swim my whole life. Um, and that's where I really decided that I needed to get over kind of whatever was going on with kind of this fear of open water that was of like what's in the water, like what lurks beneath or what you can't see, because the lakes weren't necessarily clear once you got a little bit out. They maybe just a little brown, it wasn't like it, but I guess I still harbored a lot of fear of the ocean. But long story long, I signed up for 1 mile open water swim. I showed up on the beach the day of the 1 mile open water swim, and there was a woman who was walking up on the beach. She'd started about 5 or 6 hours earlier and did a 10-mile open water swim. And I was just beside myself and thinking that she'd been out swimming this whole time while I was all nervous about doing my 1 mile swim and what's it going to be like? And I have to swim for 20 minutes and there's lake weed, whatever. But then when I saw her, really, it captivated me, this idea of just pushing off and being comfortable and pushing your limits and swimming further. And I pretty much was hooked. Did the mile, and the next year I did the 3 mile, and then I did the 10 mile, and that's
and you carried on and on
and on and on and on. Yep.
So it wasn't necessarily a fear of being sort of the water itself or drowning or anything like that. It was just a fear of, I don't know, the Loch Ness monster coming out to gobble you.
So. It's hard to when I think things have shifted so dramatically for me that it's and I'm so grateful that they have, especially over the last 3-4 years. I had a really big swim in the Caribbean in the ocean, and like the amount of surrender, like going into that swim and just trusting that I was in good hands, and then like the experience of swimming in the ocean for like 25 hours, and like I came out of that just being okay. Well, I can do anything if I swim the length of an island. And, but it took a lot to get to that point, and it was again just me like going, "What are we doing? Okay, let's go." Wait, what have I done? But yeah, my fear it's a little bit like, oh, what's down there? What is it? What's going to get me? Which I've realized in my life, I think too. I have fears of like what's outside the front door and what's going to be like if I, tell people my story, or if I, it's been interesting to kind of see the parallels of kind of like how I was holding myself back. And now that I've kind of feel like, there's like the floodgates are opening. Like these are stories that need to be told. Like the stories we tell ourselves shouldn't limit us. Is a big thing for me. It's like we need to recognize the stories we tell ourselves and free ourselves from them.
I think that's really quite powerful, because we've all got our own little things that hold us back. So I was always lucky. I've never really sort of worried about getting into the water, but I've got all sorts of other things, and recognizing that everybody's different, and just because you think it's easy to jump into this patch of sea doesn't mean that everyone around you is feeling the same way. So yeah, it's absolutely it's a real strong message. Yeah.
Well, I think it's really important. I guess that's what I love about Marathon Swim Stories, is just highlighting that, some people don't have any fear of the water, but they're afraid of like swimming further. Like they're not comfortable. They're not confident. They don't trust themselves. I feel like that's a really big part of my journey too, is I've just learned to trust myself and my body and my knowledge of my body, and knowing how I feel, and learning to communicate with my crew and trusting people to support me. Like that's such a big part of it too. It's more than like just learning to trust myself and allowing myself to trust myself. Right. But it is so important when we're working with, when I'm coaching swimmers, is like whatever they're up against is like, it's their thing, and it's so important that you're with them in that moment, and you hear them out, and you can reflect back to them a little bit of what they're saying and help them understand a little bit, like peel back the layers of the onion. But I think it's just so cool when you can hold that space for someone and allow themselves to surprise themselves, is what I love
Yeah.
was a coach, I think.
So
Mm.
I had a bit of a giggle because you jump on Google and you check in Shannon Keegan and you try and sort of get a couple of things to bring up for conversation. And I see you're super experienced because it says on the 23rd of August 1958,
Ooh, wow.
Shannon completed a 36-mile crossing of Lake George in New
Wow.
York.
58.
So you've been around. You've been around for a while, Shannon.
Yeah.
You're looking pretty good for like a 90-year-old. I must.
I think you might have got the date wrong on that.
Yeah, I saw that one as
Funny.
well. I thought,
Where's the source on
somebody's
that? I have
mistyped
to have a
that.
word with them.
That's openwaterswimming.com.
Huh, right.
Anyway,
Yeah, I did
so
swim across Lake George, but it was in 2023, I think. Yeah, I think.
yes,
Or
okay,
2022, actually.
not 1958.
Right. Somebody, maybe there was
So,
another Shannon that did it at 58. I don't know.
so I've got a similar sort of scenario that I want to maybe just compare quickly. Is also grew up sort of inland in Johannesburg. There was no oceans or anything around, so a lot of the swimming was pool. And similar to you, I put my hand up for anything like really stupid, right? And for a charity swim, the guys decided that we were going to do a 24-hour pool swim, right? And I can remember thinking, how hard can it be, man? You can just stop when you want to stop and whatever, right? Anyway, we did this swim, and as men do, after the swim, we were getting sort of changed in the locker rooms, and there was three of us lined up next to each other at a urinal. Now, I appreciate that's something that you might not be used to, but
Not
there were
familiar with
three
that.
of us
Lined up
facing.
in the urinal, but I can
There were
imagine.
three of us facing the wall, all looking pretty naked and hammered. And the one young guy, um, he was probably 27, 28 at that stage, and everybody was quiet and focusing on the job on hand. And he sort of turned around and said, we we can do any swim in the world now. After having done that 24-hour swim, he was like, we can do anything. And I can remember coming home from that thinking, why not? Why can't we? So I think it takes something, a swim, a memory, a something that needs to happen to trigger, the next
Hmm.
steps. Because for us, I mean, again, that was like, wow, okay, well, can I swim 24 hours in the ocean? Can I swim further? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it sounds like that's what's happened to you, right?
Hmm.
Um, so since that 1 mile swim that you were so nervous about, you've gone on and done a whole bunch of stuff. What's the one that's got the best memories for you?
Best memories. I think a lot about so I did the swim in the island of Dominica. It's called the Waitukabuli Sea Trail. It's a kayaking trail, and I'd gotten in touch with somebody through the miracles of the internet who happened to have a guest house and had this sea kayaking business, and was familiar with open water swimming, had supported open water swimming, and was really interested in bringing open water swimming to the
Yeah.
island, to bring open water swimmers there. And so we just kind of decided to make it happen. And so I showed up, not having ever been to the Caribbean. My husband was sailed there for long years ago before I ever met him, and so he was familiar with the island. So anyway, there was a bit of a seeming connection, like this needed to happen. So we brought our whole family. My kids were there, and really well taken care of. But I didn't even remotely realize what I was stepping into, as far
Mm.
as the just not really facilities for swimming at all on this island for people that live there. And people that swam, if they could swim or were comfortable swimming, were, it was to the race to the dock, or it wasn't so. It blew everyone away that there's somebody like starting at one end of the island, swimming to the other end of the island, and I didn't even, I didn't know or intend that. I was just like, yeah, cool, let's go for a swim. And so but I have a lot of good memories from that swim. That I think I had never swam that long in the ocean before, and I considered myself kind of pretty afraid of the ocean. It's nice when it's warmer-ish and you're not uncomfortable. The water was probably what was it, like 29? Like, it was quite comfortable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We would call that hot.
Yeah. And it's funny. I had done Loch Ness in Scotland the couple months prior, and so I'd spent my whole summer in the cold plunge. And then after that finished, I went to the sauna, and I'd sit in the sauna and visualize my swim in the sauna, which I think it worked. Whatever it takes. I feel there's a lot, upstairs, I think, to these long swims.
Yes.
Yes. And anyway, but that's probably the swim I have the most. I mean, I was hoping to see more wildlife. I did see some dolphins, and there was a little fish that joined me along the way, but we were really far out from the shore, so there wasn't just much visibility, but I could hear like sperm whales in the distance, which I didn't know at the time. Wow. They told me after the fact. And anyway, it was quite a remarkable experience. Just everything about it, just like the water was so blue, and that green mountains just like coming like right up out of the water, and it just wasn't anything I'd ever.
How long was that swim?
I think it ended up being 36 kilometers. It took about 20. Wow. It's about. I feel like the duration ends up being really what it was. It was 25 hours.
It's a long swim, man.
This is a long swim. We weren't sure how long it was going to be because the kayaking sea tour, they like stop in the villages and like they do it reasonably, like a smart person would. You do like 10K, you take a break, and just go do the whole thing. But I couldn't stay there that long, so I just had to get it done.
Yeah. Was there a lot of tides and things like that? Did you feel you were being pushed around, or?
Well, that was. I think we didn't. Again, no one had ever done the route before, so we were definitely learning as we go. And when we would get to the mouths of the rivers, it would create this kind of weird cross currents and chop, and I'd be swimming in place and didn't really know it, and there'd be flat, completely still flat moments and windy, choppy, crazy moments, and then the end was like, okay, just around this bay. Okay, no, that you see the end of this bay, just around that bay. No, actually, not this one. It's good, definitely. And I was whatever. Just tell me when we get there. I don't want to know.
Yeah. So, we've all been there.
We've all been there, yeah.
So that's interesting, right? So just to go back to your fear, my understanding of river mouths meeting the ocean is obviously rivers often push down, a bit of gunk and there's fish and it's a bit of a place for sharks to hang out is at river mouths, right? So I know when you're swimming in the ocean, it's like, hey, go wide of the river, like avoid the river. And in this particular case, you decided to aim for all of them.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't. We were so far from the shore that I don't know that I think there was an awareness that it was creating changes in the currents or something. I was just literally one arm in front of the other, and somehow I got to the end. I have no idea how. It just kept going.
Clever Dicks is New Zealand's largest swim-focused podcast, and our team at Swimscapes is proud to be their official partner with all things swimming. Swimscapes offers boat piloting and safety for solo marathon swims, as well as various packages including marathon relay swims, swim camps, and swim adventure holidays. Swimscapes is also a facilitator of the Auckland Triple Crown, coming soon. Proudly brought to you by Swimscape.
that's your longest swim to date so far?
Duration wise, I've stuck at like this 36 kilometers thing. Last September, ended up taking me 29 hours because we foolishly started at like 10 o'clock at night, and it ended up taking 2 nights in a local lake. About 2.5 hours from here is local where I'm at, but a really big reservoir. So I set out to swim 50 miles because I turned 50 last year, and after 29 hours, and it was down to like a mile an hour. My crew kind of had commitments on the other end of it, and we kind of just decided to call it. But I went back the day before yesterday to finish it up. We called it close the loop. So we're back to the same reservoir and got in where I'd gotten out, and we swam back to the marina to finish the loop.
Nice.
But the 29, to answer your question, 29 hours is the longest duration that I've spent, but I don't think I've broken 36K yet.
That's an amazing feat, man. Super well done. I'd hate to know what you're going to do for like your sort of 55th or 60th.
I know,
birthdays,
right?
but
I know. Well, I'm fresh out of this one, and while I was doing it, it ended up being about 25K to finish it up, which I did considerably faster than that first 36K. It makes a big difference being moderately rested going into a swim, I gotta say.
Oh, yeah. So you had a bit of an excitement after the swim, right?
Oh, this was before, when the boat was adrift for 14 hours.
Oh, was it before the swim?
We were motoring to the boat ramp where we were going to start, and we were maybe 50% of the way there, and we saw smoke coming off the engine, and we're like, okay, and then it looked like it was taking on water, and then it just quit. And so we rented the boat from a marina, and it's a Sunday night. It was Mother's Day. So it was like holiday weekend pretty much. And and the mechanic was kind enough to answer his phone, but he also was not in a place to be able to come out and find us. So he said, don't turn the engine back on, just hang out. And I'll keep calling people. I'll find somebody. We'll come get you. And we just were floating back to where we started for the longest time. And then the wind picked up, and then it started raining. And fortunately, there was this big bridge with these pylons, and we were really glad we didn't hit any of the concrete pylons. We drifted right between them. But we knew at some point we were probably going to impact the shore. And I went to bed. I was trying to get a little rest this time around. And at one point at night, woke up in the middle of the night, and it was like you could feel the boat rocking and up against the shore, and like, but there was like, we could do nothing. We had no like steering, or we had no engine. We were completely at the mercy of the marina coming to get us. And it ended up being about 14 hours later that there was contact in between, and they were trying to find somebody, but they were just like, there's no liability. We won't, don't worry about it. Just see where you end up and send us a pen. So we sent them a pen in the morning, and they motored out. They tried to fix the engine. They couldn't. So they ended up having to tow us all the way back to the marina. We switched boats. And then, so it was many, many, many hours after we intended to start that we were motoring back down.
I'm glad you only had to finish the loop on that one.
I know, right? Yes, for sure. Yeah. So that was a bit. It was a great practice of being in the moment. There was nothing we could do. We just surrendered to the situation. We had no idea what was going to happen. And that's a lot, I think, of what open water swimming is you have no idea what's going to happen. You like to think you're going to finish. You like to think Mother Nature will cooperate the whole time. But we really don't have any say in these things. So it was a great practice leading up to the swim when all I had to do then was swim. And Mother Nature still had her way with us with lots of rain and wind and all kinds of stuff. But it was a beautiful night. We had a lot of fun.
I suppose one of the good things about something like that is, so many people will say it's not just the swimmer, it's the whole team that makes
Absolutely
everything a reality. I suppose you've done so many swims. You must have a fairly well-oiled approach to making sure that you got the right people around you. Would that be fair to say?
It's been an interesting thing because, I interview a lot of marathon swimmers. So I hear a lot of people talk about like, so-and-so's always on my crew, or, they always kind of have the same kind of core people or what have you. And I've just kind of seen who's available. Like I started out, my husband would support me, and then we had kids, and he really wasn't interested in supporting me anyway. He'd rather stay home with the kids. So it's just been an interesting thing to try to find the right people, but I feel like the right people always crop up, and it's always a learning experience for me about just learning to build a team and communicate with the team and learn from the team, because they all have a lot of times they have a wealth of experience. Or I should say, in previous swims, I worked with people who had a wealth of experience, and I've also worked with a team that I built myself from just friends who weren't necessarily marathon swimmers, and I needed to actually educate them a lot. So I'm learning as I go, but I think to me, it's kind of a beautiful thing about it, to see who's interested and help them learn and see what happens. I don't know. I think it's an important, valuable piece of creating. I don't know. I think of it as like we create for me, I create a container to learn something about myself and where I'm at and where I want to go. And you bring people along on that ride, and they learn stuff too. And I guess my hope is that we all walk out of it being, I don't know, maybe not better people, but we have a story to tell. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure all experiences most experiences make us better, regardless. So I think it's really cool. So I've sort of been on both sides of it, being on the boat side and in the water side, and it is kind of interesting with the different dynamics. The swimmer often really worries about their team and is very conscious that they're putting all of this effort into them, so they want to make sure that their team's good, and then the team is trying to support the swimmer, and it's an interesting sort of two-way kind of energy flow, I think.
It is, but isn't it to me, it's like the most beautiful thing that we can do as humans is to do something that seems impossible, but to bring people together to make it happen. And I think it's even a little bit more unique. I was listening to this podcast the other day about somebody climbing Everest and whatever, and it being self-serving. And so I was thinking a lot of my own marathon swimming. It feels indulgent because all I have to do is swim. Everyone's taking care of you. Anyway, it's just been an interesting exploration, but I just think that there is a beautiful thing about that two-way energy, and that people want to help you and you want to do something, and I wouldn't be able to do it if I didn't have the people wanting to help me. And so it is just this amazing team, like co-creating of this beautiful, of like I said, something that you could never do on your own. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So just leading on from that, I mean, you've done lots and lots of amazing swims, but you sort of took it to the next level, and now you're coaching and actively supporting and helping other people achieve their goals as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about sort of, how you transitioned into the more coaching and enabling part of your time?
Yes. I want to know what a relationship coach is.
A water relationship coach? Yeah, let's talk about it. A
water relationship coach.
A relationship coach?
Both.
I'm sure there's.
I need help with both.
Both? Yeah. I specialize in the water relationship because I think it's an interesting part of swimming. So if you want a relationship coach, you'll have to bark up a different tree. All I've got for you is a water relationship. But it's been an interesting journey because it basically started with just having a pool in my backyard and helping some of my friends who were triathletes who wanted some tips. And then as I continued on my marathon swimming journey, I started having a lot of shoulder pain and discomfort, and ended up fortunately finding swim mastery as the method that I coach now, which is very much, I think it's a process of building a relationship with the water, to trust that the water is going to hold you up, and all you have to do is lever your float over top of the water. If you get your joint mechanics right, and then you don't have shoulder pain anymore because you're not compromising your joints, because the water is an incredibly unstable medium, and it's really easy to compromise your joints. So we have to create the stability with our frame, et cetera, et cetera. So, but it's been an interesting thing as I've been out trying to support other people, and what I guess I've really realized how fulfilling it is to be in that coach role. Like it really feeds me to be someone else's cheerleader and help them discover that they could do more than they ever thought possible, even if I can't be the person that's necessarily on the boat next to them, that I can help them prepare mentally and physically to take on something that they didn't think was possible. And then they get to have that, pride that you get to have for your whole, like no one can ever take that away from you. You did that. You pushed off and you walked up on the shore on the other side. Even whether it was a mile, your first mile is the most beautiful thing, I think, to see someone do. Nonetheless, they're not, they're 25 miles or whatever. It's I really just love that, I guess, kind of role of empowering people to free themselves from the stories that hold them back.
That's very cool. That's very cool. It's definitely life-changing stuff, right? Because
it is.
I don't think I've ever met anybody or ever heard any stories of people lying on their deathbed wishing they had worked harder or spent more time at the office, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So these are the things that sort of end up defining us a little bit, and it gives. I know from my side, being relatively new into New Zealand, swimming's given me the opportunity to not only meet new people, but to go to new places and get around a little bit, right?
Yeah,
if it wasn't for swimming, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's like a language. You could take it anywhere, and you might see swimmers, and you can just pick up with them, and not a language, but so much. But we can understand each other because we're willing to make ourselves vulnerable to just be in a swimsuit, or togs as you call them, right? And as you walk up on the shore, and it's a very vulnerable thing to do for people. So I think I live in an area where I don't feel like there are enough swimmers, and so to be able to I guess allow people to be vulnerable, and I think there's an authenticity that kind of bubbles up from that too, because you can't hide much. Right? Yeah. So we're, I don't know.
Hey, at least you get to wear a top half of your suit, right? I've got to let my stomach hang out.
Yeah. I just think it brings out the best in people. It has the capacity to bring out the best in people. We all, again, depends what stories we're telling ourselves if we allow us to be our best selves. But yeah.
So I mean, there's I heard you mentioned we call them an ice bath. You called it something else.
Oh, I said the cold plunge.
Cold plunge.
Yeah.
Cold plunge. Yeah. So there's obviously two very distinct sort of things you need for open water swimming, right? One is the physical aspect, and one is the brain. And we often talk to swimmers around, how much training do you need to do a 50-kilometer swim or a 30-kilometer swim versus how much is just belief in yourself. Hey, I can do this. It's one arm in front of the other, right? I know. So that to go back to that cold plunge story, with ice swimming, there's a lot of swimmers that rely on the cold plunge to get mentally ready for their swim. Mm-hmm. And then there's a smaller group, which I belong to, which is just, I think it's completely stupid to jump into a cold plunge every day. Do you know what I mean? I think it does more harm than good. But I guess my question is, what's the relationship between brain and physical for a long swim? How much of each do you need, and how much is too much?
Mm. I've been testing this one a lot the last several years, just because of the like kind of shoulder discomfort and just, like that I was feeling. It's just kind of causing impingement in my stroke, and but I didn't want to necessarily stop swimming longer distances. But I knew that the time I spent in the water, I needed to be building movement patterns that were safe in my joints. And that meant I had basically to rewire my brain to swim completely differently than I had for the first 45 years of my life, which so it's a big process of trying to let go. And I knew that the more I swam, I would fall back on old movement patterns. And so I was trying to be really intentional about building joint safe movement patterns through swim mastery, which, I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. The transformation has been amazing in my stroke, and that I can swim completely pain-free now. And what I've found is that the mental game is like 99% of it. So I keep my swims really short and very intentional. I want to swim. I would like to be able to build up to more and not fall back on old movement patterns. But it's this very kind of, I'm trying to find the perfect balance. But I know that I can go in the water having swam not very much. And that on the day of when I create the team and I just go for it, that I guess what my coach Tracy's, the founder of Swim Mastery, always tells me is like to come out a better swimmer than you go in, which is, I think, an amazing shift of your mindset, is to not go into your swim like done, ready, and get in and just swim until you break or whatever. It's that you're actually trying to improve in every moment. You're getting feedback from the water. This is the water relationship part. It's that you feel your body in the water. You feel when you're finding balance, and shifting your weight from side to side. And that that each moment is controlled, and when you fall back into a movement pattern, that's because our human instincts, I don't think they really serve us in the water. Like, we want to kind of do heads up, kind of like a dog in the water. So I tell my swimming instructors, they just want to like go like this. So we have to get ourselves to get, our frame, our whole head all the way in the water, to where it's in line with our spine, et cetera, et cetera. So, but that you have to override what your brain kind of wants to do, is be closer to the oxygen and manage your air appropriately has always been a really big one for me, even ever since that whole thing as a teenager. Still trying to manage my air. So I have trouble going faster because I can't manage my air fast enough, which is just all. But the cool part about it to me is that it's a lifelong journey. I always have something to work on. I'm never going to be done. So
yeah, no, I think I can definitely relate to that. So how do you manage your air? I mean, is it a case of, obviously when you're swimming open water, depending on the wind and the tide, you might want to breathe one side or the other side. And, some swimmers like me only breathe one side. It doesn't matter which way the wind's blowing, or it doesn't matter anything. I'm breathing on my right.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I mean, managing your air sounds a bit more complicated, right? So there's, we were chatting to a guy a couple of weeks ago who was referencing, while he was swimming, he was managing his breath work by volume to change his body position in the water. Because if he sucked in too much air, his body position would be too high up.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
So he was really managing his breath work to change his body positioning in the water, which is just way too complicated for somebody like me to do. I mean, I'm breathing just to get to the other end. But I guess how important is breathing on a marathon swim? I always compare it to, if you, or maybe two things, right? One is that you can go and walk being unfit, you can go and walk for 24 hours, right? Because we've been walking our whole lives. So same story with swimming. If you've been swimming for a long time, if if you're on a freaking shipwreck and if you really had to make a 24-hour swim that day, you're going to make that 24-hour swim that day, whether you've trained or not, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I don't know what I'm trying to say, but breath work.
Well, it's absolutely.
How does that help?
It's a great question. I think it's an interesting thing for me. I'm a quite buoyant person, so I'm not having to manage it to the extent. But for some people, it is learning how to regulate first there is where you're putting the air, because if you're breathing into your chest, you're kind of in fight or flight. So you're basically trying to get to the other side and get out. Whereas if you're breathing in your belly, then you're activating the parasympathetic, and you're calming yourself down, which in a medium that we can't survive is extremely important. So that's first of all is learning how to breathe into your belly. And then what I've kind of come to with air management is it's just another gauge of efficiency. So you can have an efficient stroke where you're exerting less energy to move yourself forward than the next person, and you could have a more efficient air exchange. And it's interesting, everybody is different, everybody and everybody. Like for me, I have one side that I tend to hold my breath on and the other side that I don't. And I can breathe to both sides relatively comfortably. But when I breathe to one side, it's like I have to kick it. I still, in Swim Mastery, we talk about building the neural pathways to support the skill. And I probably could do breath work every day of the week if I had the time to swim that much and eventually land this plane. But at the moment, it's still just a thing I'm continuing to work on. But to me, it's an efficient exchange of air that doesn't compromise your body position too. It's so I can maybe breathe every stroke, every two or whatever to one side. But over time, I end up kind of favoring that side. Yeah, so it's all kinds of things that go with it. But
can you practice it out of the pool?
That's my goal. One of my goals is to. At the end of the day, I think it's the layering of skills is in the water, where it's I want to be able to get my body position right so my joints are safe and manage my air at the same time, and that can only be done in the pool. Well, we do a lot of dry land rehearsals in Swim Mastery, in front of a mirror where you swim and you're, I could add the breath work into that to some degree. It's on my list. I have a very long list of things to work on, Duncan. Good thing I have the rest of my life.
I think one of the things that's probably on the top of my list is actually to get a coach. Because Duncan and I, we just go and jump in the water and swim, and it's probably the not the right way to improve.
Well, but it's a decision, right? It's a commitment to get a coach, and yeah, for sure. I hear that. I think that that works great to just get in the water and swim right up until it doesn't. I guess I don't want to end up in the line for shoulder replacement or anything. If I can,
I'm too old for a coach.
Not true. Not true. We can all be a coach.
You're just not. I don't think any coach is going to take you on.
I'm not coachable. Okay. Yeah, that's great.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
That's what my wife would say when we talk about the relationship management scenario as well. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. So if I can go back to some of the crazy stuff that you've done, because I think I've got a bit of a bucket list that I'm putting together that, when I hit the lotto one day and I've got all this time and money to travel around the world and swim. Talk to me about SCAR. SCAR comes up a lot on various sort of mediums that I hear. What's that about, and what made you go and do that?
So SCAR's a 4-day, 4-lake kind of, I don't want to stage, it's not a stage swim, so the 4-day, 4-lake swim, it comes out to roughly 40 miles over the course of this 4 days. It's in a remote part of Arizona outside of Phoenix. I say remote, as in, it's not one of the lakes is quite remote. It's 45, you're in the you're in the desert, but like not near much amenities, not like, delivery pizza or anything like that. So you've got to be, as well as there's logistically they get, Kent does an amazing job putting the event together and gets all the kayaks in a U-Haul to the start. Like there's so much that he does to pull it off. And I think I first went in 2014. I was pregnant with my son at the time, and I decided to do the last 2 days, but I wanted to try the 16 mile or whatever it is. Apache Lake is the longest one of the 4 days. And I only made it about halfway because you have to swim past the hotel you're staying at. When I got there, there was like a headwind. My husband was over it. I was puking. I was like, okay, we're good. And then I came back the next day, did the 10K. But I think it's a really neat opportunity. It's amazing to me the draw that Kent's got over the years. He brings people from all over the world out there, and they get to experience this pretty crazy, beautiful. I don't know if any other place in the world, I've not traveled enough in the world to know if anywhere else is like the American Southwest, but I had gone to college in New Mexico and spent a lot of time in Arizona. So it was part of my draw at the time the first time I went there. And then I went again in 2023, was, like, it's just I love the Southwest. So it's a beautiful part of the country to me. And, yeah, so it's I don't know. Do you have any other specific questions about it? It is a game of patience. Lots of patience is required because there's a lot that goes into making it happen, and so there's a lot of waiting around for your kayak or your boat.
How far? Do you stay in the one hotel and just travel in and out to the lakes every day, or do you need to move around?
Yeah. So the first 2 days, you could commute from Phoenix, I think from the outskirts of Phoenix. The third day, because it starts the longest day, there's a place called the Apache Inn or something like that, Apache Resort, which is very used lightly. Like, it's not really resorty. But you stay there because the lake starts so early for them to try to get everyone done. And then so basically it kind of depends how much driving you're up for, because some of the places you can stay closer to the lakes, but that just depends on, your start time and how much you want to do beforehand, or if you just want to be on site. But every day starts at the base of a dam where the water's being released from a dam above. So the start is always quite, chillier, like 13, 14-ish at the start. Wow. But it gradually warms up throughout the day, or as you're going, and more than anything, being that part of the country is really warm outside. Usually there's like the sun on your back. Yes. I think that's what I use to warm myself up, is I feel the sun on my back. But yeah, it's a beautiful experience. If you're able to make it out, I highly recommend it.
How many swimmers partake?
I think it takes, I don't know if it's 100 or 50. I mean, he's pretty selective about
it's managed.
What's
okay.
Yeah, it's definitely managed because he can only fit so many kayaks in the U-Haul. and then they have to support the boats out on the water to support people. And, I don't know, there's all kinds of.
And what is what SCAR, SCAR, is that the name of the first letter of the lakes?
Yeah,
okay.
Saguaro Canyon. Saguaro's the first day. The C is Canyon Lake. A is Apache Lake, and the fourth day is, and those three are all from dam to dam. So you literally push off with your hand on the buoy on the dam line, and you swim to the other, touch the buoy, and then you're done. And then the last one, he does a 10K triangle at night. So it ends up being like a nice kind of training swim for people who are just, I think he thinks of it because he created the course from training that he did for the Triple Crown. So he likes, giving people that opportunity to do a supported night swim. This can be kind of rare to find around here. That's just, 10K, but buoys and lights, and you go at sunset, and it's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. The night swimming, not many people do it, but if you're going to do a 24-hour swim, you're going to have a good chunk of it's going to be at night. So you need to have some sort of an understanding of how it's all going to work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
all right.
you've done your 50-mile eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
Do you have anything?
50-mile.
Yeah. Do you have any obvious next ups that you're really considering? And I suppose you're saying, are you going to come over and swim on our side of the world? Because your winter, our summer, you can come along. We'd love to have you.
I would love to come out. I've got to figure out how to pull that off. This year I've booked to get the 50 in all at once before I turn 51. I'm planning to head back to the lake where it all started for me, back to Lake Memphremagog in northern Vermont, where I did the 1 mile open water swim. I lived in that area for 3 or 4 years, over a decade ago now, but just I think very fondly of that area, that lake. I've swum in it a number of times. I've swum the length of it, which is 25 miles, but my plan is to go back and swim across and back. I figure it's a little bit more straightforward. This route we did in the lake, that's a 2.5 hours. We were like trying to get the distance. and that's and we're running, there was just a lot of literally trying to swim to get close to 50 miles. This will be a lot more straightforward. Just go across and it's 50 yards miles, but you swim across, touch the side, turn around, come back. So that's the plan for this August.
Yeah. Very cool.
Hey,
very cool.
You seem like the right type of person to have this chat to. You would have heard of the Barkley Marathon, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So come on, Shannon. We need to figure out what the swimming version of the Barkley Marathon is.
Sarah Thomas put it on. This was actually a really big part of my journey. Is Sarah Thomas, right? The world record holder for long skirts. Okay.
Sure.
She put on a version of it in 2000. It would have been 17 or 18. I can't remember. But I went, it was a mile,
sure you did.
A mile and a half every hour. Yeah. Yeah. But it was in Colorado, which was where I grew up. That's where she's from. She lives. And so I had a pull to go there. My sister was able to come and support me. And it was a mile and a half or something around this 3-buoy course. And we had to get a card from the buoy. And then it was whoever started up on if you made the time cut off and the next hour came up and you were ready to go again, then you'd push off again. So it was every hour on the hour until there was last man standing. And I ended up being second to last, which doesn't count for anything. but it wasn't, she was a big piece of the puzzle for me. Just reminding me you're doing great. You're getting enough rest. You can do this. But I've never swam through a horrific lightning storm and torrential downpour until that swim where the weather turned in the afternoon and we just kept going. And I was is everyone still lighting up? But the people started peeling off and I just kept going. And what got me in the end was it was dark and I missed the turn buoy because we weren't supposed to have any assistance from kayak. From anybody. There was a kayaker kind of with us because there was only 2 of us there at the time by that time. And I missed the turn buoy. I swam past it. The kayaker kindly let me know that I was heading for the other shore. And by the time I made it back, I only had about 4 or 5 minutes. And I just was I'm good. But that's the version I know of. She only ran it twice. I guess the lake she was doing it at started trying to charge a whole bunch and she decided not to keep it going.
Yeah. I like that. We've got a similar setup here. Not quite the same, but we swim 1 mile on the hour every hour, but just for the daylight hours. So from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And this year in November, we've got a charity called I Am Hope, who we are sort of partnering up with. and we're doing it for men's health, men's mental
That's great.
health,
Very
which is
cool.
pretty cool. But another swimmer gave us a great idea for a sort of swim Barkley vibe, and he was saying, if you jump in somewhere, at low tide, and you swim with the tide for 6 hours or whatever, 6 and a bit hours, and literally at the turn of the tide, you turn around and you swim back the other way.
Wow.
And you just do that for like as long as you can. But he was a bit more crazy than the average crazy. But that's also a pretty solid idea, right? Yeah.
I love that. Oh
Yeah.
man. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to try to recreate the water and safely, right?
Yeah.
Hey, just two more things from my side, and then I'll let you have your day back, unless Jim's got other questions. But one was, you've done some work with triathletes and obviously also just open water swimmers. Would it be fair to say that there's quite a big difference in mindset between a triathlete and an open water swimmer?
I feel like they're different breeds, but it's interesting. I guess I have one triathlete who's been working with me this year that's been so inspired by our open water swimming community that she wants to try. And like, she came in basically having had a horrible panic attack in a triathlon and barely made it through the swim. Anyway, and we've gotten her to where she just the other day had her like the best half iron she'd ever, swimming part of the event, and was so much more comfortable because we've worked on her relationship with the water. but I think she's a different breed too, because not all triathletes are really, it feels like they really just want to fight through and get to the bike and the run. I think having talked to as many marathon swimmers that I have, a lot of them have come from triathlon where they realized, hey, wait a sec, I don't actually want to, you mean I could only do just the swim? This is awesome. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you're answering your question. They do seem like different breeds, but I think there's hope for them. There's hope for everybody.
Yes. Last thing from my side is, if you wanted to just give our listeners a bit of a heads up as to possibly why you started your podcast and where they can find it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my podcast in 2020 when the world shut down and all the pools shut down. It was called Virtual Swim Practice, and I just reached out to people I'd talked to over the years and who also couldn't go swim at the pool, and I said, hey, meet me online. And after trying a few different things, not really knowing what I was trying to offer, I was like, I know, what if I just have a guest that tells a story? Because I wasn't I couldn't do PT, or wasn't qualified to anyway, at the time I didn't feel like I had much to offer, but I could be a forum. And it really just took off from there. People started asking, wanting to hear someone's story. And I had recordings of them. And so I just started putting it out into the world as a podcast. So if people weren't able to make it to the call, they could listen to the story. And it's just been going ever since. And so marathonswimstories.com is the website where you can find anybody's story, or you can find it on any podcast provider. But it is soon going to be called Stories from the Water, because I want it to appeal to people who aren't necessarily just marathon swimmers. I think that's a big part of it. But as a coach,
I like that.
When I realized, when people would come to me and say, I stumbled on your podcast, and I'd swam all my life and I never thought of swimming the English Channel till I heard someone's story and about them doing it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could still do that. They just didn't. And so it really, I want it to appeal to anybody who wants to be inspired to swim further than they ever thought that they could.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. I must admit, that's what I like about it. I mean, even on our little podcast, we've talked to some amazing swimmers, but we've talked to people who just, the water's really important. They don't have to swim fast and they don't have to swim far, but they just have to love it.
Yeah.
So I've been very inspired by your podcast. So thank you very much for all that you do on it.
It's such a joy. I'm excited to keep it going.
Hey, Shannon, you're a legend. I have a sneaky suspicion we're going to need to chat again in a couple of months about more of your swims. I think you're a wealth of knowledge and information, and I appreciate all of your time. It's really good to chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I can't wait to figure out a way to come visit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we'll look
and
after
vice
you.
versa. Yeah. I want to come and swim Scar.
Yeah, it's not too close to me, but let me know when you come.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Hi, my name is Caitlin O'Reilly. I'm the youngest person to have completed the Ocean 7 Challenge. If this really cool podcast has helped you learn something new, maybe it's introduced you to new swimmers, made you smile, then please take the opportunity to subscribe to Duncan and Jim's channel. I'm sure they would absolutely appreciate all your support. Cheers.
Thanks, Caitlin. Well, as always, you can give us feedback on our Instagram account @cleverdix or send us an email cleverdixnz@gmail.com. We'd really appreciate hearing from you. And cheers. We'll speak to you again soon.